Now, as of late, there's been this rather interesting debate within the Star Wars fandom, one about who can use the Force and become a Jedi and who can't. A debate around whether or not it's something only a select few born with a unique ability, or with enough midichlorians, can do. Or is it something that literally anyone and everyone can tap into and learn with enough time and training? Can, in theory, virtually anyone become a Jedi? And recently in an interview, Dave Filoni weighed in on this topic, which makes sense since Sabine using the Force in the Ahsoka series, a series he created, is kind of the catalyst for this discussion in the fandom. A discussion or debate that started back when it was first hinted at in the trailers that Sabine was going to be Ahsoka's apprentice, and only intensified later on when it was shown in the series that she was indeed able to use the Force eventually. Anyway, in this interview in regards to all this, Dave Filoni said, "The idea that she is not incredibly adept at wielding the Force, I think, is a strong thing. The Force emanates from everyone and everything, all living things. So she's not absent from the Force. She is part of the Force. Part of the problem is, it's like anything in life that you want to do, you have to train hard to acquire the skills. It's not that everyone can become a Jedi and everyone cannot become a Jedi. So I wanted to tell this story, though she's a very talented warrior, she's a very talented person, but this is not something that's easy for her." So basically it sounds like Filoni wanted to show that, yes, there is something that Sabine can and will struggle with. After in Rebels she was shown to be very skilled at many things and have accomplished a great many things at a rather young age, which is I think what people mainly took issue with when it came to her using the Force in the Ahsoka series. That this character already had enough going on and didn't need this too. She didn't need Jedi added to her long and already very impressive resume, that she was a better character without it. But I digress, and this topic about who can use the Force is something that even George Lucas himself once addressed way back in 1981 during the making of Return of the Jedi, and this quote is even taken from a book about the making of that film. Lucas basically said that, yes, everybody can do it. It's just the Jedi who take the time to do it. Like Yoda, if you want to take the time to do it, but the ones that really want to are the ones who are into that kind of thing, also like karate. And though I think we could branch off into a whole different debate about only the Jedi and Sith being the ones who would take the time to learn to use the Force. I mean, imagine if the Force was a thing here on Earth today. How many people do you think would, despite how hard it is, how many people would put in the time and effort to harness even just a little bit of that power? How many, say, road rage incidents would end with someone force choking the driver who just cut them off? Which is kind of my, I guess you could call it, issue when it comes to this debate about everyone having the potential to use the Force. Which is that the ability to use the Force is sort of being conflated with what makes someone a Jedi. That, and I've seen this argument made by way too many people, that since Sabine was able to Force push Ezra, since she was able to use the Force at the end of the Ahsoka series, she is now a Jedi somehow. Which really kind of misses the whole point of Star Wars and what it means to be a Jedi. It would be like the equivalent of, say, at the end of A New Hope, Luke used the Force to make the shot to destroy the Death Star, right? But it'd be like Obi-Wan at the end there, instead of saying, "The Force will be with you always," it'd be like him saying, "You're a Jedi now, Luke." When in all reality, as some seem to have forgotten, Luke did not become a Jedi until the very end of Return of the Jedi, not until after he proved he understood what it meant to be one. Same goes for Anakin. It's not like he used the Force one time as a kid and everyone was ready to grant him the rank of Master. In fact, even though an argument could be made that Anakin was one of, if not the most powerful Jedi at the time of Revenge of the Sith, and at the very least certainly had the potential, or M count, to be even greater than Yoda someday, he wasn't granted the rank of Master because being a Jedi is not about how powerful you are with the Force. His reaction to being rejected was of course even proof that he was not ready. And so though, yes, the ability to use the Force does seem to be a prerequisite for being a Jedi, it does seem to be required to be able to use it to become one, mainly I'd argue because in order to carry out the will of the Force, which is what Jedi are supposed to do, you need a strong connection to it in order to hear that will. Basically, using the Force doesn't make you a Jedi. In fact, using the Force for the wrong reasons, for selfish reasons, makes you the opposite of a Jedi. And as I've said or argued before, what I think the bulk of Jedi training actually is not learning how to use Force push or anything like that, or how to mind trick somebody. Not that depending on just how much raw talent you have or how many midichlorians you have, it doesn't come easier or harder to some people. I'm not saying that's not part of it. But the bulk of Jedi training is no doubt about mastering your emotions, learning how to be in control of them instead of letting them control you, so you can stay calm, hear the will of the Force, and let it guide you as you try to help others instead of seeking to help yourself. Which is why Jedi training takes so long and starts at a young age, before attachments are even formed. It's why the Council was leery to train Anakin and why Yoda said Luke was too old to begin the training. You want to start to train them before they form any attachments, so that it's easier for them to learn how to put others before the self or before those they care about. And though I know a lot of people hate the no attachment rule, they think it's cruel or even flat out inhumane to ask people to never have a strong attachment to another person, but you have to remember that in Star Wars, evil is essentially real. The dark side actually exists and can influence people. It can create literal, powerful monsters who seek to rule over the entire galaxy. And, like it or not, somebody must be there to stand against them. Someone has to be willing to make the sacrifices most simply could not. That is what being a Jedi is all about. Willing to do what you must for others with no thought of the self or reward. And again, like it or not, but learning how to forego attachments so you can be ready to make those right choices, those hard decisions for the greater good, is what makes you a Jedi or not. You can't just learn how to use Force Push and consider yourself a Jedi at that point. And though you can absolutely enjoy Star Wars for whatever reason you want, I find it a little maybe disappointing how many people I've seen calling Sabine a Jedi now. It's kind of sad how many people miss what Star Wars is all about and get wrapped up in the wrong things, or don't understand what this is really all about. Which maybe isn't really their fault. Maybe it's more the fault of those making Star Wars these days who also seem to forget what it's all about. Going back to that quote from Dave Filoni about Sabine and who can use the Force, it sounds almost more like he wanted to prove something with or about Sabine than anything else here. That he wanted to show how anyone can use the Force, but that it would actually be something hard for her for a change. But he failed to ever give Sabine an actual reason to want to become a Jedi. And for me, this is the biggest problem with Sabine. It seems like, going off what Filoni says, it seems like maybe she wants to learn how to use the Force and potentially become a Jedi just to prove something to herself or others. We're given absolutely no other reason for this path she has chosen, which is one that leads to, as Qui-Gon once said, a hard life. You really have to want to be a Jedi in order to be a Jedi. She also proved she wasn't ready to become a Jedi by giving the map to Baylan. She made a decision to put the life of Ezra ahead of everyone who could suffer because of the return of Thrawn. She actually made a very similar choice to the one Anakin once made when he picked Padme over the galaxy. And not only does she suffer no personal consequences, unlike Anakin who suffered a great deal, but Ahsoka all but pats her on the back and supports the decision in the end. Somehow the same Ahsoka who steadfastly refused to train Grogu because of his attachments, as we saw in The Mandalorian Season 2, the same Ahsoka who has to know Anakin's attachments to Padme played a big part in his downfall, somehow she is okay with what Sabine has done and training her in the first place. Which really makes no sense whatsoever, as it makes no sense to call Sabine a Jedi just because she can use the Force. Because she has a long, long way to go in learning what being a Jedi is all about, as do some fans, it seems. Because though, sure, anyone can learn how to use the Force to some degree, I'm more or less okay with that, the truth is not everyone can become a Jedi. I keep hearing people say that, but it is not true. In fact, it is very not true. Most can't. Most are completely unwilling or would be unable to make the hard choices when push came to shove. It takes something special to become a Jedi beyond the ability to use the Force. It requires a level of dedication and sacrifice that, again, most are unwilling or completely unable to make. And oddly enough, if the Ahsoka series and Sabine and the choice she made in it does anything at all, it proves that point. It's proof that most just do not have what it takes to become a Jedi, no matter if they can learn to use the Force or not. Well, that's all I got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think about all this. Do you like the idea of anyone being able to use the Force or not? And what do you think about Ahsoka training Sabine? Does that make sense or doesn't it? Whatever you think about that or anything else related to it, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.